Good morning. You're now listening to WGHQ AM 920 and 92.5 FM in Kingston, New York. Kingston Community Radio. This programming is brought to you by our listeners and corporate underwriters who are interested in presenting local community radio. The opinions expressed on this program do not represent those of Pamel Broadcasting or Kingston Community Radio. Listeners are encouraged to send in $10 per month to help bring this program to you. Mail your contributions to Kingston Community Radio. Post Office Box 4364, Kingston, New York 12402. For more information or to donate online, visit our website at mykcr.org. And good morning, this is Dan Gatis, and thank you for tuning in, sharing the morning with us, starting out a great morning, having a nice cup of coffee with us. Monday, July 12th, 57 degrees here in Uptown Kingston. And weather and forecast for Kingston and the surrounding area. We're all rainy day people today. Lots of rain today, including scattered thunderstorms in the afternoon. Maybe some gusty winds, a high of 77. Tonight, overcast with a 60% chance of showers at times. Rainy day Monday, low 65. Tuesday, showers in the morning, then cloudy in the afternoon, high near 75. Tuesday night, partly to mostly cloudy with a 40% chance of thunderstorms. Those summer thunderstorms, low 66. Wednesday, cloudy in the morning with scattered thunderstorms later in the day. 40% chance with a high of 83 on Wednesday and Wednesday night. Isolated thunderstorms, 40% chance, low of 65. We'll be right back.
Thanks for starting your day with Kingston Community Radio on 920 WGHQ AM Kingston and 92.5 W223CR FM Kingston, New York. Magic 92.5.
Central Hudson reminds you that summer thunderstorms can strike with strong gusty winds, knocking down trees and power lines. If you see a downed power line, call 911 immediately to report it. Power lines can carry an electric current strong enough to cause injury or death. Stay at least 30 feet away from a fallen line. Don't try to move it or anything that has come in contact with it. And never drive over a power line. Remember, your safety matters.
Hey, Dad, your prescription will be ready in just a minute. Hey, Dad, your laundry will be ready in just a minute. Dad, your lunch will be ready in just a minute.
Hey, honey, why don't you take a minute? When you help care for a loved one, you give them as much time as you can. But it's just as important to take time for yourself. AARP can help. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving. That's aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Dina Roy from Hurley, and I support the Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
You're listening to KCR, Kingston Community Radio, WGHQ 920 on your AM dial, 92.5 FM, and streaming online at mykcr.org, 7 to 9 a.m. every weekday. And we are, as we said, streaming online, alive, 7 to 9 a.m. at mykcr.org. Our call-in number, your call-in number is 331-9255. Give us a call today if you have any questions or comments. And let's get to the on-air studio with Dr. Eric Stamberg today. Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to this morning's show. We were on a little bit of a, 3-week sabbatical, and we're back for this rainy day Monday. Dan was chuckling through the forecast.
Oh, my gosh. And that doesn't include the last 2 days.
I knew I was in trouble coming in because the guy in front of me was actually driving an Ark and not a car. So, with all the rain, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. An Ark?
Yes.
Okay. How many animals did he have on?
I didn't have time to count. Okay. But anyway, this is really some weather we're having. All right, so we have a show planned for you. We're trying. Dr. Mark Tack will be calling in to give us a kind of update on what's going on with COVID. And what's relevant regarding the Delta variant. I think he'll be calling in during the first hour, and we're trying to set that in place. And we do have other various medical topics to discuss. And please feel free to call in with any questions or comments, 331-9255. Robin Baker will be helping with this morning's show as well. And when you call in, it could be medical questions. It could be, concerns about the awkward business of healthcare. It can even be kvetching, as long as you kind of stop short of maybe kind of impugning someone publicly in the air. But it's okay to kind of offer some feedback or frustrations about your medical experiences going in our community. By the way, kvetching, I need a little Yiddish dictionary there, but kvetching is Yiddish for complaining. It keeps things from building up too much inside. It's a little bit of a catharsis. All right, so we do have some random subjects to talk about. I thought I would get off to a shaky start here and talk about tremors. Yes. Shaky start.
Very good. Very good.
I knew I'd get you the second joke. The first joke got you nowhere, Dan, but the second joke got to you.
The second joke got to me, but the first one, I laughed, but not on.
All right. So shaking, tremor, comes up all the time. And by the way, we're going to see if Dr. Tack calls in. If so, we'll kind of divert this discussion and return to it. Oh, he's already on the phone. All right, we'll get back to the shaky subject. All right. Good morning, Dr. Tack.
Good morning.
Thanks for calling in.
No problem.
Let me just adjust the speakers here. So how are you?
Tired, but that's okay.
All right. Well, I'm sorry. I don't know whether you're tired because you worked or you're tired because you had a long holiday weekend.
A little bit of both, but it's all good.
That's all good. All right. So people have tons of questions. I have tons of questions about what exactly is going on with COVID and how things are looking. From what I can gather, we're okay. Let me just start by asking you questions. How are we looking on a local front right now from the point of view of COVID?
So on a local front in Ulster and Dutchess County, we're looking very good. Right now, at the moment, but everything has to be tempered with at the moment. The vaccine rates in the county are pretty high. They're not perfect, but they're good. And the case rates, I think, are very, very low. I think, get the exact number, I think it's like 18 cases or something along that line in Ulster and a little bit higher in Dutchess, with very, very low hospitalizations. So in general, right now we're doing well. The question is, what will it look like in the fall, as in the next couple of weeks and months, as the restrictions have opened up. People are, back to really, for the most part, back to pre-pandemic life. I think we're in a better shape than a lot of the rest of the country. Certainly, there's over 100 counties in the United States with less than 20% vaccination rates, and that's not a good thing.
Have we seen any of this Delta variant locally yet, as far as we know?
Yes, yeah, we have. We've had a confirmed case of the Delta variant in the county, in Ulster County, which we don't test every strain. I mean, the state health department does not test every positive case to see if it's a Delta variant. So the fact that we have it here in the county, we have to assume that most of the cases we have here in the county are going to be that variant. It's across the country, I think it's in the 40 to 50% range of cases that are confirmed to be the Delta, what used to be called the India variant.
Okay, and what exactly is that, and what does it mean to people?
Well, it means it's a strain of the virus that is more easily transmitted, so it's more contagious than the original COVID-19 virus was, which makes the risk of more people getting sick from any given one person higher, and it appears to be at times somewhat more aggressive with some people, and certainly with younger patients. Now, some of that might be that the younger patients are also the higher group of unvaccinated people.
Right.
But there are places in the country where, ICU beds and hospital admission rates are rising at a rapid pace again, and that's it really the thing that we have to look at is our country seems to have followed England, by 2 to 3 weeks, up to a month or two. If you map out the pattern there and then you map out the pattern here, it's almost identical. And they're rising, and that's not a good sign for us.
Right. Is there any difference in the treatment for the Delta strain versus just the other strains of COVID virus?
No.
Yeah, it's the same.
No, from the perspective of treating people who are ill, the only difference is the monoclonal antibody selection. The original monoclonal antibodies that came from Eli Lilly were not effective or as effective against the Delta virus. The Regeneron are still good, and there's now another combination from Lilly that's a little bit better. I think the other thing that's important to look at is that with vaccines, the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccine, two vaccines, still seem to provide about 90% protection against the Delta virus. One vaccine only about 25 to 30%.
That's the Johnson & Johnson?
No. One Moderna, one Pfizer.
Oh, I see. Only one dose of the two of them.
Right. So
I got you.
People who got their first dose and didn't go on to get their second, that's not a wise decision.
So that's one message to get out to people. If they never received their second dose, if it slipped their mind or they decided they didn't want it or need it, they really should reconsider that decision.
Well, the statistics are clear that unvaccinated people are the ones that are clearly the highest risk. In parts of the country, between 90 and 99% of the people who are hospitalized and dying from COVID are the unvaccinated.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there was a headline that I kept quoting all week from the state of Maryland had 140 deaths, I think, in the month of June. Maybe it was the month of May, and 0 of those people were vaccinated.
Right.
That really caught my attention.
Well, it's Darwin. I mean, it's survival of the fittest. Now it's going to be survival of the vaccinated.
Yeah.
Well,
that is the fittest.
It's unfortunate. I had a patient in the hospital you work at 2 weeks ago tell me that the vaccine was a government scam meant to affect the population, that it magnetizes people, and I would understand that when I accepted the fact that Biden didn't win the election.
Oh boy!
I just looked at them. Yeah, and I looked at them. At that point, there's nothing to say.
What are we going to do? I mean, how do we get through to this? I tell this anecdote of a patient also at the hospital. This is about a month or two ago, but I went to discharge her, and she'd survived. I mean, basically everybody, including members from your infectious disease practice, worked very hard to basically save this woman. And when I was discharging her, I counseled her to get the vaccine in around 3 months? I don't know if that's still a hard and fast recommendation.
Yeah, it still is.
And she said, no, I'm not going to get it. It was like, and it took a lot of energy on my part to not kind of lose it a little bit and say, do you realize how hard everyone has been working to save your life, basically? And here you go, snubbing your nose at people as you're leaving. I mean, it was very hard to keep, you know this, Mark, so a lot of times it's hard to keep that professional demeanor on. I mean, we got to do it, but gosh, it's hard sometimes.
Well, yeah. I think it is a challenge. I think that for the first year plus whatever of COVID, it wasn't people's. You accepted the fact that people got exposed, they got sick. There was nothing, that they took the appropriate precautions, but it happened. But now you sort of get the sense of it's like, it's like going out into a bar. That's full of people who are HIV positive and saying, I'm just going to have sex without a condom on and take my chances.
Right.
It's really the same idea. And it's preventable. There's no reason to be at risk. Okay. And yet you put yourself at risk, and when people get infected, they don't just put themselves at risk, they put their friends,
right,
their family, their neighbors, and then they put the emergency room, the nursing staff, the doctors, the respiratory therapists, and everybody else at risk.
Right. Yeah, it's that greater good argument. That's always kind of the most upsetting thing of all. Are we citizens or of a society, or are we not?
So I asked the patients, imagine there was a disease that was going to kill 500,000 people, 500,000 people, and we had a vaccine, but that vaccine had a problem. It was going to kill 10,000 people. So we have a disease that's going to kill 500,000 or a vaccine that's going to kill 10,000. What should we do? Do we let 500,000 people die to have 10,000 people, or 10,000 people? Now here we have the exact opposite. Here we have a vaccine. We have a disease that's killed 600,000 people and a vaccine that hasn't killed people.
Right. We should make that very clear. There are no fatalities from the vaccine.
Right. Here we have a scenario where the vaccine is, okay, people got some fever, people get a sore arm, people got fever. I don't want to downplay the side effects, but people aren't dying from the vaccine. But 600,000 people are dead from this disease. We have a solution, and we've turned this into a political and emotional situation as opposed to science.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I had a rough time with the vaccine. And I tell it to all my patients. I said, but you know what? It was worth it. You
could still breathe.
Right.
You could still breathe. You can't breathe with coronavirus.
That's Dan.
We haven't intubated a vaccinated patient here. I mean, I don't know. Again, I think that Ulster County and Dutchess County, our numbers are good. They're not perfect though by any means. I mean, I've lost the exact count. I think we're in Ulster County, somewhere around 70%. For at least first vaccine, and in the 60s on 2.
Right.
And that's good compared to these counties that are less than 20%. And then I spoke to somebody who said if you go to a large amusement parks in the South, and I won't mention any particular ones, but half the people are wearing masks, half the ones aren't. If the ones that are wearing the masks are the ones that are vaccinated.
Right.
The ones that aren't. That's the honor system.
Right. So if you're in a room of people who are vaccinated, what do you think? Or is this a scenario where we could take our masks off and kind of comfortably socialize?
I think it is. I think if you're in a room where everybody in the room is legitimately gotten 2 vaccines or the J&J, and they're past the window, the 2 weeks or the month after the vaccine, and they're healthy, they're obviously not visibly ill, I think that you're generally safe, particularly if you're outside. But inside seems to be, a higher risk, but still, I think that, you're a safer place. The problem is, you don't know who the people that aren't vaccinated are.
Right.
And there is a 5% breakthrough. The vaccine, Moderna, Pfizer, are 5%. 95% effective.
By the way, that's pretty good, right?
But the 5% of people that do get ill don't appear to be the ones that are dying.
Right, so you can still kind of get the Delta variant if you've been vaccinated, but the case is really mild. There have been very few cases of significant illness caused by the the Delta variant. People who've been vaccinated. Is that correct?
That's correct. But there are people. There are people who have diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, COPD, kidney disease, who are in that group. And if they're in that 5% group and get the disease, they might not not do so well.
Right.
I mean, the odds are in their favor, and that's the reason, you want to do everything you can but you really, why even take that chance at all? Why be exposed?
Yeah.
People,
it defies common sense, but we do have a caller, so let's see if the caller has a question.
Sure.
All right, good morning, caller.
Hi. So I have a family member that refuses the vaccine because of testing done on aborted fetuses. And I Googled it, and they said like they developed both vaccines in the lab, and at the end, to see how it would act on human cells, they did use aborted fetuses. And so she and all of her family are taking this stand, and I'm just wondering, what do you say about that? I mean, I know it's not, they used it at the very end, but what do you do on a religious basis for people that are not getting vaccinated? That I don't necessarily agree with her, but I don't know how to, I don't know how many people feel that way, but that's her stand on it, and her family. So if you could address that, and I'll hang up.
Okay, thank you for calling. I haven't heard about that one. So what do you think? Have you heard? Is that something you heard about, Dr. Tech?
I'm not aware of that. So I guess the answer would be, I guess let's for a moment take the idea that it's true. Let's assume for a moment if they don't use aborted fetuses, they use fetal cell. They use cell lines to see if the vaccine would go into a cell line. They don't use the fetuses. I mean, that concept is just not correct. But what if those cell lines, and these are tissue cell lines that are used in research, what if that was a cure to cancer? Would they turn it down? If one of those members of their family was diagnosed with lung cancer, and the drug came out that could cure their cancer, or they would die from it, and that drug happened to be produced through using fetal cell, tissue cell lines in research, that would they say no? I would rather die than use that drug. Now, I'm assuming, I'm starting with the assumption that what they're saying is even true, which is something I'm not aware of. But even if it was, the vaccine is not produced by aborted cells. It's not used. It's not a ethical or religious issue. The vaccine itself is developed to save people's lives. And the J&J vaccine, which I can only say is the adenovirus vaccine. So it's a part of the COVID virus is sort of put inside of an adenovirus and then used. That for sure has nothing to do with aborted tissue cell lines. So I think that this is more political. This is the same thing that the virus magnetizes you. That they put a chip into your arm. They're going to track you. That it's meant to decrease the food supply, the food chain. More people die, we'll have more food available. I mean, I've heard all kinds of stories. You have a vaccine that can save your life.
Right.
I don't.
It's hard, right?
I just don't believe that this is a true story. I don't believe that the vaccines were not tested or developed using aborted fetuses. That's just not the case.
Well, I'll do a little search of my own, but you have to. It is something we say to the listeners: be very cautious about what you read and where the source is coming from.
Yeah, of course, everything you read on the internet is true, right? I mean, my wife bought me a very, very good mug that I use in my office in the morning for my first cup of coffee, and it says, "Please don't mistake your Google search for my medical degree." And in some ways, it's meant to be humorous, but in some ways it's not. You can't Google your way through cancer, and you can't Google your way through COVID.
You could try. So can you clarify the difference between the fetal cell lines and how that's different? Because I'm looking at it right now. It is here on an LA County website. Difference between using a fetal cell. Is that a stem cell?
Right. So there are scenarios where that there are human tissue cell lines that have been the government has reviewed that are allowed to be used in research to see if a vaccine will work inside of a cell, if a vaccine will be dangerous inside of human cells, if it will affect the DNA, if it will affect RNA, and that's not. But those are not human embryos; those are cells. They're not capable of turning into human beings. They don't have they're a tissue cell line, the same way that they use those types of tissue cell lines to develop skin graft, artificial skin graft.
Yeah.
For coffee things. This is not. They don't take an aborted fetus and somehow inject it with virus or strains or things like that. It's just not true.
Right.
Okay. How do you tell if a chemotherapy drug kills a cancer cell, a human cancer cell? You use cell lines. You use research cell lines. You don't just give it to unsick human beings and see what happens first.
Right.
Okay. But it's not the same as. It's not about whether or not you believe in abortion. Okay. This is people are not getting pregnant and having abortions to provide fetuses for research.
Right. I have a young woman in my extended family who is concerned about fertility. Where is this coming from regarding the vaccine avoidance?
Yeah, so it came from the concept that the vaccines are RNA, messenger RNA vaccines, and obviously DNA and RNA are part of who we are, and so they somehow that concept got into the idea that the vaccine could somehow impact your ability to have children, and of course it turns out, in very well, the studies are showing that that's just not true. That people can get pregnant and people continue to have children, and that the vaccine does not appear to cause any increased risks of abortion, spontaneous abortions, miscarriages, or any kind of teratogenic, meaning birth defects. It's just not true. Okay, and vaccine studies are being done on pregnant women, which is fascinating because, by the way, drugs that are coming out to the market that save lives are routinely not tested. The pharmaceutical companies generally don't want to take the liability of testing in pregnant women. It's just not worth it to them at any given product. However, in the vaccine, with the idea that pregnancy, most people don't realize that pregnancy is a mildly immunosuppressed state. A pregnant woman, the fetus that they're carrying, half the DNA belongs to the father, not to the mother. And if the mother's immune system was left to its own, the mother's immune system would attack the baby. So pregnant women are at high risk for certain types of diseases and illnesses because of that. And so being vaccinated for COVID is just that much more important.
Right.
Absolutely.
Robin is here. Robin.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dr.
Good morning,
Doe.
Robin.
How about an update on the idea that we might need a booster? What do you know? What do you think about that for the vaccine?
Well, I think we have to wait and see what the data shows. I think, to me, the idea of a booster gets treated the same way the idea of a vaccine. It's a scientific question. So we have to look at the models in front of us, see what's happening. It turns out, Pfizer's request to the FDA about a booster was based upon antibody levels, whereas CDC and the FDA's decision not to recommend a booster was based upon clinical data. And what I mean by that, so in Israel and in other countries, several other parts of the world where they've had very high vaccine rates and do have essentially herd immunity, when they measure the titers in the blood, they appear to be somewhat lower over time. However, what they don't see is an increase in disease. And there are some vaccines, like as an example, the hepatitis B vaccine, where we have something called an amnestic response. What that means is, even though the titer in the blood is low, if you're exposed to the disease, your immune system still remembers it and is prepared to fight. And so we don't know what the role that plays yet. I think we have to wait and see.
Right.
The bigger issue, quite honestly, the bigger issue with the booster right now is if we can't get half the country to take the first shot, how are you going to get the other half to take a third?
Right. We actually have another caller. Good morning. But they went away.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Hi. Good morning. How are you?
Just fine. I have a question for you guys. Has there been any study done on a correlation with veterans from my generation who got dosed with 10 zillion jungle shots when I enlisted, Nixon was president, and getting the COVID? Because we were given, things for malaria, for yellow fever, everything under the sun. I mean, I remember I couldn't lift my arms for 2 days when they were done with me. But I'm just curious if there was any correlation with veterans getting COVID and not getting COVID.
No, there's no protection from the vaccines that were used in the military in the Vietnam War or in any of the military. Those vaccines were typically, there was not a malaria shot. Malaria was pills, but they did give anthrax vaccines. They have given smallpox vaccines. I have a new nurse practitioner that works with me who's got 20 years in the military. Right now, she's in reserves and was just deployed in Germany until a few months ago. She's gotten all the military vaccines and still got her COVID shot. This virus is different than anything that we had back in the Vietnam era. In terms of side effects and profiles, veterans and people from all over the world were involved that have been vaccinated, and there's no correlation with any problem in that group of people, or there's no sign that veterans are more likely to have an adverse event from the vaccine at all. So I think that, while it's a good question, it doesn't appear to be an issue. The veterans should get vaccinated, and they shouldn't be concerned that the vaccines that they received previously will have any impact.
Oh, I got my shots. I got the Moderna shots, and not even a bump in my arm. No side effects at all.
There you go.
Well,
Right.
you missed your chip, huh? I'm obviously kidding, but
Good.
By the way, if they want to track you, they don't need a chip in your arm. You got the phone in your hand, right?
No, I'm speaking to you on a speakerphone. My wife and kids both got the Pfizer. They both got a little tummy aches afterwards, but nothing to speak of, and everybody's good to go. So I would recommend everybody get the shot.
Great.
Thanks for calling.
Thanks for calling.
Every member of my family, every single member of my family, my wife, my children, their spouses, boyfriends, girlfriends, parents, sister, brothers, aunts, uncles, cousins, every single member of my family has been vaccinated.
Right.
Oh, before everybody gets scared, I will tell you, I am a diabetic and a stroke survivor, and I suffer from high blood pressure. I got all the bad markers. I hit all the wrong buttons at the wrong time. But the shot had no effect on me, and I did not get COVID. So people should put their fears aside and think about what's best for them, but don't be afraid unnecessarily.
Right.
Well, and the sad, I think the saddest story of all the sad stories in COVID that we've seen in the past, 15 months, 16 months, and you and I've seen a lot of them. They're the ones that stand out to me the most are where a family member got the virus and infected a parent or a sibling, and that person ended up dying. There's nothing sadder than that. And I remember a particular story of a woman who was doing some painting in her house and asked her mom to come over and watch her child while she was painting. And she said, "No, I'm fine. I'm careful." And she got the virus, and the mother got infected from her, and the mom died. And she has to live with it, and it was very emotional. So there's nothing sadder to me than it's hard enough to go through this, but to have that potential implication that you could have done something, that to protect your family members, and instead they got infected because of you. That's just a sad state.
Yeah, sort of sad story.
Yeah, and then there were a lot of them.
Yeah.
There were a lot of those sad stories. I mean, everybody who died was a sad story, and remains one. And those people, when you look around your dining room table at Christmas and the holidays, and you have empty chairs, well, those couldn't be some of those couldn't be prevented, but now they can. You
Right.
don't have to. Every life that's lost now is a life that could have been saved.
Dr. Tack, do you have any thoughts on the any updates on the FDA approval of the vaccine?
That's a good point, because that's one of the things that people who don't want it are hanging on to. It's not approved. It's not approved.
I think that'll change in the next couple of weeks. I think that the FDA approval will change. I don't know that. There are lots of. Again, I bring up that issue that imagine that you were the patient with lung cancer or colon cancer, and you're going to die from it, and there was a drug that would save your life. It's been in tens of thousands of people, but it was done under emergency access. You're going to say, no, don't give me that drug. I'd rather die than take my chances with that drug. I mean, you know, and you know it's coming. You know it's going to be approved in a month. But if you don't get it this month, you take your chance in dying. I think that that's the way you have to look at this. This is a lifeline.
Right.
It's not a death. It's not a death line. It's not a death sentence. It's a lifeline. You know.
And you know, it has emergency approval. I mean, and that is the term that's used. So it is approved. It's just, you know, as Dr. Tack points out, I mean, for the, you know, for reasons that we needed to address this pandemic.
Right. That's a system. Now we're talking about a system of, you know, how does the government, review and apply, you know, rules to things, not about whether it's safe or not. Okay. The vaccine is safe. All we have to look at is the 150 million people that have gotten the vaccine. They're not turning glue. They're not getting 3 eyes. Their fingers and toes aren't falling off. They're surviving COVID. And the people who aren't getting the vaccine are dying. I mean, it's not really rocket science here.
Right. All right. Well, we appreciate your time, and we appreciate the work you do.
I'm sorry if I sound emotional about it. I am. It's very frustrating to see people die unnecessarily. You know, I have this conversation. I talk to people who are, you know, I have patients who come to me who are for lifestyle decisions at higher risk for HIV exposure than others. And I have a conversation with them and said, there's no reason to become infected with HIV now. We know how it happens. We know how to prevent it. All you have to do is take those steps. Why would you put yourself in harm's way? Why do that? It doesn't make sense to me. Okay.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, again, thanks for all the great work you've done, and also your colleagues, you know, Drs. Cutler and Yanofsky and Froud, working tremendously hard throughout all of this. So thank you very much.
Yep. I hope you guys have a great morning and a good day. And hopefully, if one or two people listening to this, if a couple of people will get vaccinated, and every minute of this conversation was worth it.
Right. That's right. I agree with you in that.
Okay?
Yes.
All right.
All right.
Good morning.
All right. Thanks. Take care.
Bye.
And we're going to go to a break.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tack. And thank you, Robin Baker and Eric Stamberg. Dr. Eric Stamberg, thank you. And many thanks to you all. And you're listening to KCR, Kingston Community Radio, on AM 920 and 92.5 FM. My name is Dan Gatus, and it is 7:38 a.m. We'll have a short second quarter, I should say. It's Monday, July 12th, and 63 degrees here in Uptown Kingston. And the rest of the weather for today, we're all rainy day people today. It's lots of rain today, including scattered thunderstorms in the afternoon. Maybe some gusty winds also, a high of 77. Tonight, overcast with a 60% chance of showers at times. Rainy day Monday all day long, low 65. And Tuesday, showers in the morning, then cloudy in the afternoon, a high near 75. Tuesday night, partly to mostly cloudy with a 40% chance of thunderstorms. Those summer thunderstorms, low of 66. And Wednesday, cloudy in the morning with scattered thunderstorms later in the day. 40% chance with a high of 83. And Wednesday night, isolated thunderstorms, a 40% chance, a low of 65. So, hold on to your horses there. Okay, we'll be right back.
Thanks for starting your day with Kingston Community Radio on 920 WGHQ AM Kingston and 92.5 W223CR FM Kingston, New York. Magic 92.5.
Central Hudson reminds you that summer thunderstorms can strike with strong, gusty winds, knocking down trees and power lines. If you see a downed power line, call 911 immediately to report it. Power lines can carry an electric current strong enough to cause injury or death. Stay at least 30 feet away from a fallen line. Don't try to move it or anything that has come in contact with it. And never drive over a power line. Remember, your safety matters.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 30 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Eleanor Errol from the town of Ulster, and I support Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
And we're back. You're here with us at KCR, Kingston Community Radio, AM 920 and 92.5 FM. 7:40 a.m. and 63 degrees here in Uptown Kingston on this Monday, July 12th. Plenty of rain. Kingston Community Radio is talk radio, and we welcome your call-ins. Thank you for the call-ins so far today. 331-9255 is your number. 331-9255. And let's get back to the on-air studio with Dr. Eric Stamberg. This upcoming portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Central Hudson.
All right, welcome to the end of the first hour. Not the beginning of the end, but the end of the beginning.
We thank Dr. Tack for staying on for a few more minutes. There were a lot of issues that really needed to be covered, and we thank him.
Right. So, I ask every single patient that comes in, have you had your immunization, COVID
Well, are
shots?
you able to, in the office, I know at our office, our doctors, if you're vaccinated, the doctors will take off their mask, and you're allowed to take off your mask, and they will speak to you
I don't know if
if
that's
you're
correct, 'cause
vaccinated.
I think the official recommendation from the state is still medical facilities should wear.
Well, all of us in the office, but if the doctor, of course, is vaccinated, and if the patient is also vaccinated.
The risk is we talked about that, the risk is very low amongst people who are completely and appropriately vaccinated. 2 doses, enough time lapse in order for it to be effective. 2 weeks after the second shot is usually was given. The risk, and I do say that to my patients. I say, because sometimes they want to take their mask off. They're having a hard time talking. They got COPD or whatever, and I say, sure, go ahead. But I really have some patients that it can be very, very frustrating. Trying to kind of give them this basic recommendation, and sometimes it's hard not to take it personally. I mean, you're here, you consider me your doctor because you're a patient of mine, and I'm giving you a recommendation that is far from controversial, yet you're choosing not to adhere to it.
Appreciated this call from the veteran this morning, even with his questions regarding how does it affect him. I mean, he's saying that before he was sent to Vietnam, he said it took 2 days for him to get all the vaccines.
Right.
By the way, traveling is picking back up. We have a travel vaccination center at our office.
Okay.
So for about a year and a half, we haven't had any calls about anybody traveling. Okay. So no vaccinations as far as traveling. But you are not allowed to travel without these vaccines. Without yellow fever, without typhoid.
Well, it depends on where you're going.
It depends on where you're going, right. So you can't get on the plane to go to some of these places without these vaccinations. And it's not an issue for these people who are going to these exotic places to get these vaccines. They're like, yes, give me yellow fever. Yes, give me typhoid. Yes, give me, the Hep A, Hep B, encephalitis. Vaccines that are going to protect you and keep you from dying because you wanted to go traveling somewhere.
And by the way, if you don't get appropriately vaccinated, you might be able to get into the country that you're visiting, but the U.S. may not take you back.
Come back, right.
We don't want to take, so...
There's a little yellow card, and anyone who has traveled extensively knows, and these vaccinations also don't last. So if you've had a typhoid vaccination and you had it 10 years ago when you last traveled to the Orient or wherever you were headed, you have to get another vaccine. It's kind of like tetanus. I think that lasts 10 years, right?
Yeah,
you don't want to die of lockjaw. I mean, it's unheard of, right?
Right. One of the rules of travel medicine is to also just make sure other vaccines are up to date, like tetanus.
Correct.
Yeah. That comes up a lot with patients sometimes. Well, I just contradicted myself. It does come up every now and then. Hey, I'm going here, and they'll name some unusual place somewhere in South America, somewhere in Asia, and I went to the CDC website. By the way, the CDC has a great website, and I need
tell
this.
You exactly what you need.
Can you do? They kind of ask me to do that, and I usually decline. It's just I say no. You got to go to a travel medicine center. The infectious disease department where you work runs one. I think there's other places where you can go, because I want it kind of done from someone who is more experienced with this. Some of the vaccines we don't give. You guys give yellow fever?
Yes.
Yeah, that's you have to be kind of like a certified center or whatever to So I don't even have that.
Right.
So I don't really think it's the fairest request of your primary care physician.
Just an example of you're making the decision to travel somewhere where there might be a disease that might kill you, and there's a vaccine for it, so you take it.
Right.
Here we are living here. There's a disease that might kill you. There's a vaccination that can prevent you from dying.
Right.
So please take it. So the idea of waiting a little bit to see how everybody else kind of does.
Yeah.
Which is interesting concept, isn't
Let
it?
everyone else go first.
We talk about that a little bit. So,
bravery.
But that's done. You've been able to see that everybody else has gone first. So
my experience is the ones in my practice who are not immunized yet against COVID. There's kind of two categories left. They're the ones who are waiting and seeing. Most of them, if they haven't come around yet, when I mention it, they kind of will. And so you got two. You got kind of young people who don't think they need it, and there's been a lot of statements in the media, including from some medical people like this guy Scott Atlas, who's I can't believe this guy. The degree of chutzpah that it comes from this guy, but he's a neuroradiologist. He's got some connection to Stanford in California, so he's a big shot. But he's a neuroradiologist, okay? So he knows nothing about this. He's not Dr. Tack. You know what? He ain't me. He doesn't even treat patients. He reads x-rays. But he was saying, this whole thing that young people don't need to get it. They should get natural immunity. That's better. It was all bogus and ridiculous and almost criminal in the misinformation campaign. Anyway, so you have young people who kind of just don't think they need it. Now, young people already are a little impervious. That's part of being young and, brash. So that's one category. And then the other category, and they just kind of need a little bit, yes, it's time. I explained to them that the Delta variant seems to be more aggressive in younger people, but simply because fewer of them are immunized. But still, I use that as a kind of an impetus to get to consider getting immunized. A lot of schools are requiring it. My son Sam's school is requiring so that's those are good measures. You don't have to get the vaccine, but then you can't go to school. It's that simple. Anyway. And then there's the small subset of people who their heels are dug in so far, and they're still so stuck in a belief system that is based upon hyperbole and
misinformation.
And it's hard to pull them back out of the rabbit hole there. I use so many metaphors when I talk about stuff like this. Bring them back to reality. It's hard. One woman, she's a mom, around 50, very, very normal, family, works, whatever. And when I mentioned to her, it really, again, got a little diatribe about how it's metal chips and they're going to control you. And it really kind of blew me away. I mean, I did not expect it from this person. So I don't know, how to respond to that. It's like
you can't physically put a chip in the tiny needle that is being used. You just can't. It's impossible.
Just untrue.
It's just untrue.
It's just untrue.
It's physically impossible to do that.
And even if it was possible, what would that tell you? That I went to the bathroom at 1:12 p.m. on a Tuesday? That's what the government wants to know?
why this is so ridiculous is that this is trying to save your life. It's not doing anything except trying to keep you from getting sick. That's it.
And it's trying to also, save the life
others.
of other people
Right.
too. And that's a whole other argument. This kind of, community based. This is kind of narcissism that
but
is
even if
taken
you
over.
had the stance where you really, if you were individualist and you just, other people are on their own. I'm going to take care of me. Take care of you. Please get the vaccine so that you are protected.
That's
and that
how you take care of you.
That you don't die, right? So if you're an individualist and that's how you feel, just take care of you. And in the meantime, while you're taking care of you, you're going to be taking care of others.
And I've had plenty of cases of people who we've diagnosed with COVID, and they've said, "But I don't go out. I don't do this. I don't do that." Clearly, it came from somewhere.
That's right. It's a very sad story that Dr. Tack told. About a young mother whose mother comes over to watch her child, and then she loses her mother. I mean, right. I have several close friends of mine who were waiting, didn't believe, didn't want to do it. Some are immunocompromised. They were very worried about, one more thing. I have enough to deal with. I don't want this vaccine in me. And then they came to the realization that they were really putting their elderly parents and their elderly relatives and the, friends and family at risk because they were the ones that were not getting the vaccine. And they did. They did finally go and get it.
So that kind of line of thinking, or discussion helped sway their decision.
Correct.
But there's still some others who are just so dug in, and we can't get them back. I
think it's very important. I mean, President Trump got the vaccine. President Trump got the vaccine as soon as he could get it. I think he got it in January before most other people could get the vaccine. So I think it's important to see that President Biden, our leaders, are vaccinated. They're not taking any chances.
No.
So I just hope that the population will also follow.
I mean, you and I were a little bit ahead of our time when we started to do this show because it was one of our earlier discussions. We were talking about flu shots, and you were making fun of me because I talked about Appalachia. How the government, during the polio epidemic of the 50s and 60s, the government, had people lining up in Brooklyn, but they had to kind of go into more rural, isolated parts of the country and talk to people and say this is in your best interest, and it was a tough slog, but here we are 60 years later, and it's kind of having that same conversation.
So, Dr. Stamberg, how would you coax or explain the importance of the vaccine to someone who had COVID and who believes because they had COVID they don't need the vaccine because like having measles or like having chicken pox, if you got the sickness, you didn't need to get the vaccine. Why is this different than those type of illnesses?
Right. Well, every virus is different. Something like chicken pox, you kind of get only once because in a way it lives in you for the rest of your life. It's weird that way. It can manifest later in life as shingles. So that's kind of a different discussion. Other things like the flu, for example, change every year. So that's one of the reasons why you have to get an annual flu shot. So someone who's already had COVID, that does not, the evidence so far does not support that gives you lifelong immunity. It just doesn't. So you can get it again, and there's plenty of people who've had it more than once. We know a young man in our extended family also has had it more than once. The other part of the argument is also doesn't hurt. Well, it might hurt literally. Get a little side effects from the shot, but so you get an extra kind of immune boost from getting the vaccine 3 or 4 months later. It doesn't hurt you. So really, if you've already had COVID, you should still get the vaccine. again, that misinformation. Again, I'll mention the guy's name. He's a doctor. There's nothing hidden about it. But Scott Atlas, is a guy who said things like young people don't need to get it, or getting it naturally is better than getting it artificially. I mean, I don't know where the chutzpah in this guy comes from. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's not an infectious disease specialist or epidemiologist or a virologist. People have to be very cautious about who they're listening to. We talked about once a report I watched in the evening news of a channel I usually don't listen to, but their expert was a retired surgeon from Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh has nothing to do with it. But again, that was their expert to kind of say similar things. A retired surgeon. I'm sure he was great at taking out gallbladders, but he doesn't know anything about immunology or whatever. So keep that in mind. You're better off, again, I think there's a great role for your primary care provider to help you with this as well. I wish it was easier in the office setting, and I gotta even do follow-up or policy now. If someone wants the vaccine, I wish I could then say, okay, let's give you the vaccine, let's bring it in. But we're still having some issues with the vial. Remember, the vial has like 10 doses in it. So once you open the vial, you have only so much time to use up all the doses, and then there are stories of doses getting wasted because they expire. It's far beyond my purview to understand why we don't have single dose vials, kind of like with the flu shot and a lot of other shots where,
Right, this is just how they're made. We are at our office offering the shot at the time of the visit if you have not been vaccinated. And we're offering the shot to anyone, not just people who are patients at our office. So
people who are not patients of your practice can also potentially
come get the
go
shot.
For the vaccine.
That's
right.
At MAHV. And get it at a doctor's office.
MAHV, right?
MAHV at 360 Washington Avenue. Stop by. Well, you should probably call, get an appointment.
Call.
Right. But still, they're offering it to anyone. We have Moderna, we have J&J vaccine. We do not have the Pfizer. I had a small issue with my own son who was given his first vaccine at college. And then because they do random testing, which I was totally 100% in favor of at his college, and he was randomly tested 2 days before he was expected to get his second Pfizer vaccine, and he tested positive for COVID. So he had to quarantine, which he did, and then not receive the shot for a certain amount of time. And of course, in that time came home. The semester ended. So he was in need of his second Pfizer vaccine. And I called the county, and it just so happened that day at Best Buy, they were having
or Best Buy used to be.
Where Best Buy used to be at the mall, that clinic site, they were offering the second Pfizer vaccine. It's a walk-in basis. So people were scheduled to get their second Pfizer vaccine because they had received it, 4 weeks earlier at the Best Buy site. But they had plenty of vaccines, and he walked in and received his second vaccine.
Right.
So even though it's after the time frame, it still is fine. And he was fine and had no residual effects. And my son is vaccinated, and that makes me happy.
Yeah, and great that, because that was an original sticking point. If someone had the first dose and then they got sick, did they have to go back to the same place to get the second dose to stay, and that was originally part of it. I had a couple of cases where someone got the first dose in Florida and then they came back up, where they're going to get their, so that's all been kind of remedied as well. So, and gosh, there are parts of the world that would love the vaccine the way we have it here, the fact that we kind of can't give it away to this remaining population. In other parts of the country, horrendous.
Very interesting, Dr. Tack saying
1 minute
that received the first vaccine, you're basically 25% immunized.
Right.
If you just forget
I think he was saying
or
specifically
choose
against the Delta virus. I think that's what he meant, but
he said you need the second to reach that 90%.
Right. And by the way, 95% is very high effectiveness of a vaccine. I mean, you and I have talked about the flu shot for a long time. I mean, some years, I think the flu shot effectiveness probably averages about 70, maybe, 75%. protection. So it's a very effective vaccine. It does come with a price. I mean, there are side effects. So you and I both had them.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. All right, so we'll close the COVID part of this morning's show, but just really, if you have not received it, if you know people have not received it, keep working on them. All right, really.
It's not religious. It's really just a friggin' vaccine.
We're in this together. Be
All right.
back.
We're going to go to a break.
Thank you, Dr. Eric Stamberg and Robin Baker, for bringing us up to 8 o'clock, and many thanks. Many thanks to you for listening, and this is Kingston Community Radio, WGHQ AM 920 and 92.5 FM. It is now 8 o'clock a.m., and it's Monday, July 12th, and 63 degrees here in Uptown Kingston. This last portion of Kingston Community Radio was brought to you by Central Hudson. And today, we're all rainy day people again today. Lots of rain today, and it's a rainy day Monday. And it's including scattered thunderstorms in the afternoon also. Maybe some gusty winds as well. A high of 77. Tonight, overcast with a 60% chance of showers at times and a low of 65. Tuesday, showers in the morning, then cloudy in the afternoon, a high near 75. Tuesday night, partly to mostly cloudy with a 40% chance of thunderstorms. Those summer thunderstorms, and a low of 66. Wednesday, cloudy in the morning with scattered thunderstorms later in the day, 40% chance, and a high of 83. Wednesday night, isolated thunderstorms, 40% chance, and with a low of 65. We'll be right back.
Never completely ready to adopt a teen.
For late nights writing English papers.
For your teen's music taste.
For dinners, where they talk more on their phone than with you.
For the first time, they call you mom.
You're never completely ready to adopt a teen, and you can't imagine the reward.
To learn more about adopting a teen, visit adoptuskids.org.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Thanks for starting your day with Kingston Community Radio on 920 WGHQ AM Kingston and 92.5 W223CR FM Kingston, New York. Magic 92.5.
Swimming pools are great for family fun, and Central Hudson wants you to play it safe. Never operate an electric appliance next to or in the pool. Be sure pool motors and filters are grounded. Have them installed by a professional and serviced by a licensed professional electrician. Be very careful if there are electric lines above or near a pool, especially if using long-handled cleaning tools. And if a storm is nearby, get out of the water. Your safety matters.
Hi, this is Cameron Rylands from Kingston, and I support Kingston Community Radio because it's informative.
This upcoming segment of KCR is brought to you by Herzog's. Do you ever think about what really matters? At Herzog's Home and Paint Centers, community, family, and neighbors all matter. And Herzog's employees have been a part of the Herzog's family for years. They value personal customer service and being close to their community. Stop by Herzog's Home and Paint Center in the Kingston Plaza for all of your home building and maintenance and painting needs. Discover the difference of buying local. Sales ongoing also at herzogs.com. Look up herzogs.com. You're listening to WGHQ AM 920 and 92.5 FM, the home of Kingston Community Radio. My name is Dan Gatis, and it is Monday, July 12th, and 63 degrees still here in Uptown Kingston. Our call-in line is 331-9255. 331-9255 is your number. And let's get back to the Dr. Eric Stamberg and Robin Baker in the on-air studio. Welcome back.
Wow, the rain is torrential.
You can hear it on the roof.
That's right.
Especially in the on-air room. Yeah.
All right. So I stumbled on an article about affect their local community, and I wanted to give a little plug to this. This comes from HV1, which is a local website. New Kingston Clinic will provide health care to patients regardless of ability to pay. Articles from July 7th. Ground was broken in Kingston last week on the Pine Street Family Health Center, a new facility being built by the Institute for Family Health, which is expected to serve between 8,000 and 10,000 patients annually, regardless of their ability to pay. Among the community leaders and elected officials on hand were Kingston Mayor Steve Noble, who recalled once seeking help from the Institute when insurance wouldn't cover an issue for his own son. Mayor Noble said, "We know that a vibrant and healthy community requires a vibrant and healthy healthcare system. The fact that the mayor's son and an undocumented immigrant can have the same access to care with no questions asked is exactly what healthcare should be." That's from Mayor Noble. The Institute for Family Health and the Mid-Hudson Family Health Institute, where I did my residency right here in Kingston, merged in 2007. Operates 6 facilities in the region, including Kingston Family Health Center on Route 32 and the OBGYN and Specialty Center over by Health Alliance Broadway campus. And they also have other locations close to the city. The new Pine Street Family Health Center will offer primary care for adults and children of all ages, including preventative care, vaccinations, screenings, women's and men's health services, care for chronic illnesses, and integrated behavioral care. The center will also host numerous community programming and wellness options in collaboration with other Kingston-based groups. Again, this is from New York State Senator Michelle Hinchy. She says, "To see this revitalized into something that is going to be so profoundly important and impactful in our community is really special. We all know that access to good, quality, affordable care is one of the most important things in the community. We know that what you are all building here is going to solve some of these problems." Let's see. And then Assemblyman Kevin Cahill also said the leading organization training family practice physicians outside of a large. Wait, I'm sorry. Okay. This is Kevin Cahill talking about the Institute for Family Health. It's a leading organization training family physicians outside of a large metropolitan hospital setting. The Institute has graduated over 200 primary care doctors, of which I am one, and treated hundreds of thousands of local patients. Cahill said, "With this new facility, their outreach will expand, more people will have access to care, and our community will be further enriched. While buildings are surely important, more than anything else, we look to the doctors and caregivers dedicated to provide quality care." Let's see. All right. Anyway, I wanted to congratulate the Institute for Family Health on this new facility and being committed to providing health care to people regardless of their ability to pay. The picture shows some colleagues of mine, Dr. Walter Woodley and Dr. Mark Jasewski, who were both attendings while I was a resident, so they taught me. They helped make me who I am as a practicing physician. So congratulations to the Institute for Family Health for doing such good work.
Awesome. Yeah. Fantastic. So just touching on business of the day, there's no birthdays today.
No birthdays.
Wow.
I know.
Send in your birthdays. Come on.
Somebody has a birthday today. So if it's your birthday today, happy birthday. Please send in your birthdays.
Yeah, you can email them. You can email them at
mykcr.org.
No. What is it? 921 KCR921 at gmail.com.
Got you.
And of course, you can always mail them in at Post Office Box 4364, Kingston, New York 12402. Come on, there's a beautiful cow pie
waiting for you.
Somebody,
just waiting for you.
There it is. It's gone to waste.
Delicious at the Boyce Dairy Milk House.
Yes.
What better way to enjoy a famous cow pie than a beautiful sunny summer day like today? Oh, I'm sorry, not quite happening.
I saw the forecast, by the way. I saw one sunny day this week.
It's after Wednesday.
I'm saying.
Okay.
So, but the flowers are getting watered. That's for sure.
That is true. And by the way, other parts of the country, Southwest is having a horrendous heat wave. I think I heard Las Vegas broke a record with 117 degrees. So, and I've saw it a little bit. Robin and I were busy over the weekend. We played some music with a a friend on the drums, and he got a little overheated, from playing outside in the beautiful weather we had for one day, Saturday. So it is important that people need to understand their limitations in the heat and stay hydrated and keep themselves, feeling all right. I always caution people, but we live right on. We live right by the Hudson River. A lot of people go in the water, and that's always a setting where people really don't appreciate how much they need to stay hydrated. It's breezy. You don't really realize that the heat and sun are working on you. Breeze or
when
no
you're on the
breeze.
boats. Yeah,
when
on
you're
the
boats.
boat. Yeah, absolutely. Oh boy, you can get dehydrated so easily.
So, but inside the folder that usually has the birthdays, it says to definitely mention who is on the show, because sometimes people who are listening, they're not aware of who's talking. So this is Dr. Eric Stamberg.
This is I.
And I'm Robin Baker, and I'm the patient perspective.
Yes. You are everyone's favorite conversation facilitator. That's your role. All right. Well, I did have some other topics to talk about today.
Oh, good.
And I thought I would get off to a kind of a shaky start.
A shaky start?
Yeah.
So afraid of what you're about to say.
I'm going to talk about tremor.
Okay.
Shakiness. You know anyone who has a tremor?
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not comfortable.
What do you think are some common causes of a tremor? I'm having a bad day.
Parkinson's?
Well, we'll get to Parkinson's. Let's just think of some benign things first. They're really not diseases. All right, look at me. I'm having a very stressful day. What am I doing? First of all, I'm holding a big cup of coffee.
Which is shaking.
Right, so I'm shaking maybe because I'm having a stressful day, and I'm also drinking some caffeine.
Too much caffeine.
Right, so there's two things right there that could kind of be causing the tremor. And tremor can be caused a lot of medication side effects. Just to name a few, things like Ritalin and medicines for ADD, albuterol, kind of an asthma medicine or COPD medicine. That certainly can do it. We mentioned caffeine. Steroids can do it. Really anything that's what we call psychotropic can cause a tremor.
A stimulant?
Stimulant, that would be like the Ritalin, basically. But even things like Prozac, antipsychotic medicines like Haldol, some diabetic medications that can cause low sugar. Low sugar is another cause that kind of causes a tremor. Lithium, Sudafed, cough and cold medicines that are available over the counter. And thyroid disease and thyroid medicine that might be up a little too high. So what would I do if someone came in and they said they had a tremor? Well, I would ask some basic questions. When do you experience this tremor? They gave me some nice answers like, it's worse when I'm having at work, and it's worse. And I'll maybe ask a few questions like how much caffeine do you drink? Nicotine as well as a stimulant can cause a tremor. If there's nothing obvious along those lines, you want to review the medications, and if it seems related to the medication, you should consider tapering, lowering the dose, tapering the patient off it, or discontinuing the medicine. However, a person may need the medicine, so then it becomes down into risk versus benefit. If the benefit of the medication outweighs a little tremor that they have as a result. Basic workup that I sometimes will do is a thyroid test. If someone has an overactive thyroid, they would have a tremor. So that's part of the workup. Some people can have just what's called a benign essential tremor. Sometimes it's familial. You think of some famous people in our culture.
Hepburn?
Katharine Hepburn was an individual, kind of had that shakiness to her voice. Some members of the Kennedy family also kind of had that shakiness. And I usually ask a few questions like that. Did your parents have it? Anyone else in your family? It tends to get worse as someone gets older. Benign essential tremor. And one of the ways we want to distinguish it when we work up the tremor is it something that's occurring at rest, or is it something that's occurring when you try to do something? If I go to reach for this mug and my hand's shaking, that's called an intention tremor. You could have what's called a resting tremor, like this. So you mentioned Parkinson's. That's commonly a cause of a resting tremor. Something that's kind of unusual but can cause a tremor in people less than 40 years of age is something called Wilson's disease. That's what we call a zebra. We have that famous quote that we use a lot in medicine. If you hear hoofbeats, think horses, not zebras. So in other words, think of the common things first before you start jumping. That's one of the problems with the internet searches today and they've even studied this, that it tends to jump towards more serious things, more unusual things, and kind of jumps over benign things. So that's one of the things I would caution people. I'm not really against Google searches. I don't mind that. I think it's okay for a patient to educate themselves. And try to sometimes I, play a little game sometimes. Not game's the wrong word, but I say, what do you think is going on? Have you searched it? And I'm all right with that. But you got to be aware that you might be, I use the phrase down the rabbit hole. Sometimes I say that a Google search might just lead you down the wrong hallway, and that you need me to direct you back into the right hallway. I once had a patient really, a woman had some urinary problems, and she wanted a medicine called finasteride that she had read about. Well, that's for a prostate problem. So I had to say to her, you are a woman, and you do not have a prostate, so that medication is not appropriate for you. But her Google search had led her down that hallway, so you have to be cautious and an understanding of that. So that's really the frustration I think the doctors have, is not so much that people are educating themselves, but that they're kind of letting it formulate their opinions prior and then during the interaction with their healthcare provider. You and I talk about that kind of like patient etiquette.
Right.
When I go in, I'll say, what's going on? I don't want you to tell me your diagnosis. I have a sinus infection. I want you to tell me your symptoms. Well, I've been having nasal congestion and facial fullness for the past 2 weeks. I thought it was getting better. That's what I want to hear. So I don't want, we don't want to hear what you have. I mean, and again, sometimes I will say to a patient, what do you think you have? And then we also don't want to hear what you need. We don't want to hear, I have a sinus infection, I need an antibiotic. That's not the way you start a doctor-patient encounter. You don't go into the mechanic and say, I need a new fan belt. You say to the mechanic, it's making this noise or whatever. Anyway, that's a tangent, but I just wanted to re-emphasize those points because I think they would go a long way into improving dynamics between patient and their healthcare providers.
Right.
Anyway, so we talked a little bit about Wilson's disease. I do have a member of, again, a third time today, I'm talking about an extended family. But a young woman in my practice who has that condition called Wilson's disease, which is a genetic abnormality of copper metabolism. And it can lead to cirrhosis, among some other things, too. So it's a serious disease, but it's rare. But if someone has a tremor, we want to know if it's resting or action tremor. And this could be a little hard to interpret too, because someone with Parkinson's, that's a rest. If they're sitting there and their hand is just kind of shaking, sometimes they use the phrase pill rolling. Literally kind of looked like you had a pill in your hand and you were rolling it around. That's kind of a classic tremor of Parkinson's. But there's other symptoms of Parkinson's too. Parkinson's causes rigidity, kind of just a sense of being stiff. It also causes bradykinesia, which is a fancy word meaning slow. And it also makes you unsteady on your feet. And someone with Parkinson's will typically not have much facial expression. So usually a pretty basic physical exam can kind of alleviate any concerns over Parkinson's. It is true with earlier stages, maybe the tremor is the only symptom. But those are things that I'm looking for. Alcoholism is a big cause of tremor because particularly people withdrawing from alcohol will have a tremor. Matter of fact, we talked about this entity called benign familial tremor. Old-fashioned doctors would recommend, a drink to help treat it. And sometimes that is, a glass of wine at night or whatever. Anyway, so what should you do if you have a tremor? Well, it kind of depends. We say depends a lot in my my business. It depends on how bad it is. If you're having a benign essential tremor, even though it's benign, it doesn't mean it's not a major problem in your life. Maybe in a more severe case, this is like people don't really write checks anymore, but there was a time where that was one of the questions we would ask. Are you having a hard time signing your name to a check? Because the hand was shaking so much. It affects people professionally so much. Can you imagine what happens to a dentist, or someone who needs their hands, or just someone more like in a social setting? Yeah, a musician. Someone who's just a business person, whatever, who kind of has this tremor and thinks it might be affecting how they're perceived during their interactions with other people. Anxiety and emotional state will worsen the tremor. So when someone has a tremor, we look for potentially a reversible cause. Is there a medication that's causing it? Is there too much caffeine? Is there nicotine? Is there too much alcohol going on? I do a basic lab workup, and mostly I'm looking at the thyroid. It's usually not the issue. If someone has an overactive thyroid that's causing a tremor, there usually are some other symptoms, but it's part of the workup, and every now and then you'll find something. But if someone needs treatment for the essential tremor, we'll prescribe a beta blocker. Anything that ends with OLOL is a beta blocker. Atenolol, propanolol, metoprolol. There's a few others. The older ones, like propanolol, are felt to be more effective with tremor. And you'll see a lot of the neurologists who are the type of specialists that might be, that a patient might be referred to evaluate this problem. We'll use the older ones, propanolol. Problem with that was they do tend to have some more side effects, more sedation. So the newer ones like metoprolol are sometimes used too. So anyway, and if you maybe have Parkinson's, that's kind of a huge topic unto itself, because that has its own treatment. That's an abnormality of dopamine. So the medications have to do with increasing dopamine in your system. But anyway, I thought we would bring up the tremor. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have several, friends who have been affected by tremors. I had a friend that was affected for a long time in her dominant hand and had to learn to write with her non-dominant hand.
That's interesting. Was this someone who was younger?
40s.
Okay.
And then it alleviated. So interesting.
I could learn how to write with my non-dominant hand.
It's amazing what you can do when you don't really have any choice. So, if you couldn't write with your dominant hand, you'd have to learn to, find a way.
Right.
Right. If you broke your hand, say, and couldn't use it.
Yeah.
So yeah. So, and does the treatment alleviate the tremor or just lessen the tremor? Or, are you cured?
No, that's not. If you have a benign essential tremor, it's a condition that you got. So you're kind of just treating it. If someone doesn't respond to propanolol, sometimes a medication called primidone is used. Primidone is a barbiturate. So it's one of the few times that we still use barbiturates in modern medicine. Barbiturates were commonly prescribed as sedatives in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, but then they got kind of replaced by the benzos, the benzodiazepines, the Ativans, Valiums, Xanax, Klonopin, which were felt to be better and safer. I'm not so sure that was really true, or was that just kind of an early example of pharmaceutical marketing? But for the most part, barbiturates are not used in modern medicine. Phenobarbital is sometimes used for people with seizures still, and primidone is used for tremors. If it works for someone, that's great. I find that it can be very sedating. So anyway, so if you have a tremor and it's something that's concerning you or interfering with your activities, it's worth the evaluation. So anything Did I shake all the leaves off that tree?
Yes. Feeling a little shaky myself.
Well, we were talking about you before you came in today. Were your ears ringing?
Well, I was listening.
Well, because that's our next subject of the morning, which is tinnitus or tinnitus. We might have addressed this a little bit when we had Dr. Courtbus on as our guest a couple weeks ago, but it did come up last week. Ringing in the ears. Have you ever had that?
I've never had that, but
I get it sometimes.
Is it associated with vertigo?
Well, it can be. Most commonly, it's actually associated with kind of hearing loss. Most commonly, it's kind of like some nerve fibers in your auditory nerve that are not working and they're ringing. Sometimes the patient is not so much complaining of ringing, but more of a humming. But these symptoms can be tough to manage, and it's the type of thing that kind of comes up, and there's not much to do for tinnitus. I'm having a hard time saying that.
Is it tinnitus or is it tinnitus?
Well, it's tomato.
All right.
So it doesn't matter.
I'll say it.
I want to know if it's one ear or
in the
both.
audio world, it's always called tinnitus. And that's a big world that has problems with tinnitus. The audio world.
Yeah.
Yes. Especially live sound personnel.
I got you. So it can affect your professional life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It can. In its advanced stages, it can be incapacitating.
It's linked to hearing loss in most common causes. So it is more common as we get older. The degree of interference with your day can vary. Because part of the basic treatment is just kind of distraction. If you're listening to something else, if you're doing something, that might help you get through the day. A lot of the times the complaints are at nighttime when people are trying to sleep and they're having a hard time settling down because they hear the symptom. Sometimes it is associated with vertigo. There's something called Meniere's disease, which has to do with too much pressure in the inner ear. And the three cardinal symptoms of that are vertigo, ringing, and hearing loss. So when I do ask those questions when a patient reports it, and I do think that merits a referral to an ear, nose, and throat physician if I suspect Meniere's disease. Look, it's just a symptom that can be very frustrating to people. So sometimes even though I don't know what can be done for them, I do refer them just so they can kind of have a full evaluation from someone like Dr. Courtbus, and maybe it can't be a candidate for some treatment, or just kind of say, yeah, it's what you got, and you got to just kind of hang in there with it.
Dr. Courtbus is a audiologist, am I correct?
No, he is a ear, nose, and throat physician.
Oh, okay, good.
We had him on the show a couple.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Definitely can't say that.
Otolaryngologist.
We had him on the show a couple of weeks ago. He was talking about the treatment for sleep apnea that kind of went in the neck. This kind of new approach to things. So, but the ringing in the ears is a common reason to see an ear, nose, and throat physician. I also thought I would talk about another subject, which is comes up. It seems like such a innocuous comment, but it is worth discussing, which is wax in the ears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yuck.
So wax is kind of caused by various things. Your ear canal has skin. Skin, like every other part of your body, can secrete some secretions sometimes. Schmutz, that's a medical term, can get into the ear and just kind of accumulate little particles of whatever, and wax can therefore be the end result. Wax is not a problem unless it's causing a problem. For example, if someone has symptoms, most commonly it would cause the hearing to be muffled. I'll always say to the patient that your ears can tolerate 99% clog, but if it gets to 100%, it sounds like it get through. 99%, you're still going to get sound going through. If your ears feel discomfort, painful, or hearing loss, I guess we mentioned that. Sometimes it gets a little irritated, causes like an itchiness or whatever. Our friends at Medicare are very specific about covering removal of earwax. They don't cover it just for the heck of it. You got to really document that you're having symptoms from it. So, and I say it to patients too. I say, a lot of times it shows up in a physical exam. And I always look in the ears. I don't know why. It's just kind of the way I start my physical exam. But I'll say, you're full of wax. Are you having any symptoms? And the patient kind of says, yeah, now think about it, I am. Or they'll say things like, my wife tells me I can't hear anything. But anyway, so I know it seems like a basic, innocuous subject, but it's worth talking about because it does come up. So we'll revisit it after our last break of the morning.
Okay, and thank you, Dr. Eric Stamberg and Robin Baker, for bringing us around to 8:30. It is now 8:30, and it's now at the bottom of the hour, and you're with us here at KCR, Kingston Community Radio, AM 920 and 92.5 FM, WGHQ. And Monday, July 12th, and we're still at about 63 degrees here in uptown Kingston. Because the colors and quality of paint you choose matters, Herzog's Paint and Design Center, located in the Kingston Plaza, is there for you, offering the largest selection of Benjamin Moore paints and the area's most complete line of painting supplies. Herzog's Paint and Design Center also provides color samples from Benjamin Moore paints, including the eco-friendly Aura line. Color decorating consultants and expert interior designers are ready to assist you in choosing the right colors and more. Visit Herzog's in the Kingston Plaza. Today, we're all rainy people today. Rainy day people. Lots of rain today, including scattered thunderstorms in the afternoon, maybe some gusty winds, high of 77. And tonight, overcast with a 60% chance of showers at times, rainy day Monday, low 65. Tuesday, showers in the morning, then cloudy in the afternoon, a high near 75. Tuesday night, partly to mostly cloudy with a 40% chance of thunderstorms overnight, and a low of 66. Wednesday, cloudy in the morning with scattered thunderstorms later in the day, 40% chance, and a high of 83 degrees. Wednesday night, isolated thunderstorms, 40% chance, and a low of 65. We'll be right back.
Thanks for starting your day with Kingston Community Radio on 920 WGHQ AM Kingston and 92.5 W223 CR FM Kingston, New York. Magic 92.5.
Crispy, blazed, toasty, faded, lit. No matter what you call it, if you're high, you're too high to drive. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
How do airplanes fly? What's in this box? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Learn how to store your gun securely and make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them?
By their clothes,
their age,
the way they speak.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America, 200 Food Banks Strong, and the Ad Council.
Part-time job, full-time hustle, all-time Shiro to all of us. Now it's time for you, our Shiro, to stretch for the stars. Get free tips to help boost your retirement savings now at aceyourretirement.org/Shiro.
Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Scott Harrington from Hurley, and I support Kingston Community Radio because the people need a place to have their voice heard, and it's lost in corporate radio, so please keep listening and supporting our station.
And we're back. You're with us here at KCR, Kingston Community Radio, WGHQ 920 on your AM dial, 92.5 FM, and streaming online at mykcr.org. KCR's talk radio, and your call-in number is 331-9255, 845-331-9255. And this upcoming portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. Many locations throughout the Mid-Hudson Valley, one near you. And for this Monday, July 12th, we have one more half hour to go with Dr. Eric Stamberg and Robin Baker. Welcome back.
All right, good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, Robin, you have such a lovely radio voice.
Very melodic.
Yes, I have a good radio voice, too.
Except for the coughing. Shout out to the real Dr. Stamberg.
Oh, Captain Sinus? All right. All right, we were talking about wax. I know it seems like a basic subject and a kind of a silly subject, but it comes up all the time in primary care. So generally, in a way, wax is our friend. It kind of helps protect the canal, whatever. But if it's causing a problem, it needs to come out. Some people, by the way, are just prone to wax, and they need to kind of see ENT, I don't know, with some scheduled basis, every 3 months, every 6 months. Men, in particular, have a harder time with wax because why do you think men have a harder time with wax? It's a little. They have hair.
Yeah.
I know. It seems like not the most becoming subject to discuss on the air, but part of the treatment is to clean it up, men. Get one of those trimmers they sell for $20 over at CVS.
There's a great scene in City Slickers where one of the characters is turning 30. I think he's turning 30.
Oh, so old.
I know, but his boss comes by and he's got the scissors in his ear, because he's getting older and he can't handle it. He's losing hair where he wants hair, and he's getting hair where he doesn't want it.
I know that feeling. All right, anyway, we have a caller. Good morning, caller. I don't think anyone's there. Good morning, caller. Are you there?
Yes, good morning.
How are you?
Hi, how you doing?
All right. What's up?
I'm, you're talking about earwax and stuff
yes.
like that. And you may have answered my question while I was on hold, but but I go to an ENT, and
right.
he cleans my ears like with a metal instrument, a straight, round metal instrument that goes into the ear to take
right.
the earwax out. But one of the things that does happen, and I do wear hearing aids, is that oftentimes you get itch and a lot of itching and
yeah, sure.
And yeah, the earwax does bother me, but and I will sometimes use a Q-tip, something that my mother used way back when I was growing up, and I'm told that Q-tips are not the thing to use.
Good point. You made so many good points in one simple phone call. Yes, we don't like Q-tips. People tend to push things in rather than take things out. And we've also, every doctor will tell you stories of the patient who punctured their eardrum because they were being too aggressive with the Q-tip. And you also talked about hearing aids. Yes, that is an example of something that will worsen the incidence of wax because stuff that might normally find its way out of the ear canal will be kind of stuck there because of the hearing aids. And you also mentioned the fact that the wax can sometimes cause other symptoms like itching because it gets a little, I use the word schmutzy in there. It gets a little moist, particularly this time of year. Things are a little hot and sweaty. And then, yes, it almost acts sometimes like a swimmer's ear because it gets irritated. And a guy like you, probably, I think what you're talking about is kind of like a vacuum device that a specialist will have to kind of clean the ear out. We don't have that in the primary care setting. We usually use irrigation. We usually kind of 50% water, 50% saline, and we kind of flush the ear in and out and try to dislodge the wax at that time. And it can be frustrating. It can take a while sometimes. Sometimes I joke with patients that the wax has been in there since the Kennedy administration.
The wives like to see that come out of their husband's ear.
Oh, I know. That's a funny image, too, when it's coming out of the guy's ear and the wife is, like, cringing. And I'll be like, that's what you sleep next to.
Okay, but what can the DIYer, the guy who does it, if I'm at home and my ears start bothering me, what can I do for myself?
Well, another.
I hate to make a trip to my primary doctor or to my ENT to tell them that I think I have earwax, which is bothering me.
Right. Well, you're making another very good point. So there is an over-the-counter product. One of the brands is called Debrox, but it's available in store brand now. Deborux doesn't do a great job once the problem's there, because it's there. So, but someone like yourself who's prone to this, I say, maybe once a week, or even just once a month on a Sunday night, you should put a couple drops in your ear with a couple, cotton, not in the ear, but just kind of right outside the ear, and sleep, and then clean it up in the morning, and that will prevent the wax from becoming such an issue.
Debrox is sold over the counter, and it's drops that just soften any wax that might be hardened inside the ear. So even when you're coming to the primary care doctor, they'll ask you to soften that wax by using Debrox a few days in advance of your ear irrigation.
Right. So that might, if you want to do something like that, that might prevent you from needing to go either to your primary care or the specialist, ear, nose, and throat specialist every so often.
Okay. Very well, then.
All right. I appreciate it. That's, again, it's a mundane topic, but it comes up. All right. Well, thanks for listening.
Okay. Have a good day.
All right. Bye-bye.
Well, and that's a good topic, too. I mean, people have Q-tips at home. They don't like wax coming out of their ears. They can see the wax. They don't like it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a correct way to use a Q-tip is only on the outside, right? You don't push it inside the canal.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at even like the product of Q-tips, or any brand that you turn over the box, a lot of times they even have disclaimers, not for your ears. I mean, it's an interesting, Q-tips, they'll say, oh, it's to put makeup on and other uses. So it's always been kind of a controversial thing. But no, we tend to not like Q-tips. A lot of times when I'm cleaning out an ear, and I'll say to use it will be a habitual Q-tip user. So obviously they're not working. But again, men in particular, groom it, clean it up in there. There's very good products you can get that now that kind of like clean it up.
Right, like there's like an electric, right? Like it's kind of like a mustache trimmer, but it's for your ears.
Absolutely, I think it's the same thing.
Right.
It's the same idea. So
just gonna swirl it around in there, and it just trims the hair.
Yep.
Gotcha. So interestingly, we had gone into CVS.
Okay.
Over the past couple days. I know we had stopped in one time, and boy, was the line long.
Yeah.
To pick up prescriptions. Right. So we kind of got on the topic of kindness or etiquette.
Right.
As far as waiting is concerned.
Right.
And it comes up a lot, not only at the doctor's office, of course. We all know about high blood pressure levels because someone had to wait too long to get in to see their doctor. But I also work at a restaurant, and I know Dan also works at a restaurant. So I saw a post not just the other day where someone was reminding you that if you're going out to eat, to remember that someone's cooking that food for you.
Right.
It's not back there pre-made.
Right.
And if you're cooking dinner for yourself, it usually takes a half an hour to an hour probably to make a nice meal. And consider that the person in that kitchen is making 40 meals at a time. So
well said.
Thank you. Because, you kind of run into this sense of, where's my food? How come I'm waiting so long? What's going on? I mean, no one is sitting with their feet up in the kitchen. Okay, everyone is working very hard. Yeah. The only reason they're at work is to make you a nice meal. Yeah. So keeping that in mind and maybe have a little appetizer, have a cocktail. You're out, have and just realize.
Get off the grid. Get off the grid for a little while.
Be kind to the people.
And enjoy the moments that you
that are
have.
serving you.
Yeah, exactly.
So, when you're going to the doctor, you're also, kind of being served, aren't you?
Yeah, but there's a lot of analogies to what I do and what you guys do. I mean, and we talk about that sometimes. Is the doctor-patient relationship kind of like a customer provider of a service relationship? Certainly modern medicine has tried to push it into that category, and some components of it are like that. Other components are not. I mean, for example, when you talk about after-hour calls, no one's calling the owner of the restaurant at 2 a.m. because they are having heartburn for what they ate. But it does have elements of similarity, and in modern medicine, it has kind of forced it into this customer-provider model, which is awkward.
I like to kind of raise it to the level of client, because a client is a professional.
Correct.
A professional component to your business.
Right.
So, the idea of a client, either for a restaurant or for a doctor's office, is, I think, a good idea, because they're your professional, like they're providing the income, and they're providing the, because there's kind of a relationship when you say client, rather than, when you say customer, it's kind of like going to Ollie's or something like that. But there's literally a relational thing going on at a restaurant,
yes,
or a doctor's office that isn't necessarily the same thing as you're going to get at Marshall's or.
So we were recognizing this irony of seeing, seriously, like a line that came down the
people.
aisle and all the way down the card aisle. Maybe 16 people waiting for prescriptions. 17. Maybe I don't think I'm exaggerating. Yeah. But no one was demanding anything. No one was pushing. No one was shoving. No one was making their way to the front of the line. They were just waiting until it was their turn to pick up their medication. Yeah. And we just found that
they weren't happy, some of them, but
probably it's not fun to stand in a line and wait for your. But I just think that it happened to be Friday evening, right? People who wanted to get their medication maybe before the weekend, but at the same time, the aggressiveness in which sometimes patients, customers, clients behave. There's like a decorum that should probably be an etiquette that should probably be discussed. And I would find it interesting to ask our listeners to call in and let us know about your good experiences, and maybe you've had a bad experience that you'd like to discuss. Because the truth is, at the doctor's office, at the restaurant, the only thing we want is for you to be happy and for you to have a good experience.
Right.
No one is going to work to make sure that you are not going to have the experience that you want. And you can be assured that when the doctor is running 10, 15, 20 minutes late, that it's not a good thing for the doctor.
Yeah.
The doctor has probably had an unexpected emergency, a patient that was sicker than they thought. They were, having to address an issue that they didn't realize. Maybe the patient said, my foot hurt when they came in for their visit, but when they got in there, they were having chest pain. These are things that take a little longer during the visit. So just to be assured that your doctor is on your side.
And just like when you sign in or you sign out of the office, there's a line sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, this is a complicated system. Insurance is complicated. You got to review stuff. There's forms you might have to sign, HIPAA forms, and then when you sign out, there might be labs that you have to pick up. A follow-up appointment has to be scheduled up. So there are times where I would like people to say, hey, if they're willing to wait online at a supermarket or a pharmacy or Disney World, they should have to wait. Sometimes might have to wait in line at the doctor's office. It does not mean that there's something wrong with the office. This is your healthcare system. This is a complicated system that has many things that make things more difficult throughout the day.
Right. I often hear from my patients that even if they had to wait, on a more positive note, they're happy that the doctor took the time to spend with them.
Yes.
And they realize that the person that was before them that maybe took a little longer, the doctor was also doing that for someone else.
Right.
And then they understood that's an understanding.
And there's articles that I read kind of, giving a guy like me advice on how to deal with stuff like this, and to acknowledge the patient's time goes a long way.
Yeah.
Saying, I'm sorry, I appreciate you, waiting. sometimes I'll say, we're busy, and I just, your time is valuable, and I'm going to acknowledge that. So that's one of the things that upsets patients is not so much that they had to wait, but that they feel like they're not being valued.
Oh, the doctor's time is so important.
Right.
My time is not important.
Right. So I think
true.
just kind of acknowledging that goes a long way towards addressing the issue and the patient, feeling more valued.
Correct. And I know, at our office, I know they do it at your office too. They do surveys. They want to know how your experience is. They want to know how to improve the experience. Really, everyone is on board to make sure that the visit goes as well as possible.
Right. The problem with surveys, and we all know, is that not everyone fills out the surveys, and they probably skew towards people that maybe were unhappy with something, because most of us just say, thank you. Now you go anywhere, they give you a receipt saying, they circle something in the receipt saying, go online, and most of us just go, all right, thanks for helping me, and I'm leaving now. I'm not going to go log on and
unless something goes wrong.
Right.
Then I will take the time to leave a review on Yelp or
Right. So I really caution people from putting too much faith in kind of online evaluation services. Two things. I think it skews towards people that are upset about something that. When I actually read the little vignettes there, and I don't do it a lot, trust me, but I sit there going, what you're upset about is not valid. You're upset that a test was done that, came back negative. Why'd you have to have the test, or you didn't get a treatment you wanted, or whatever.
Restaurant reviews are different, though, right? Because they tend to praise. Incredibly, they'll take pictures of the food and then they'll put it online and then they'll praise it like mad because they're so surprised that it's so good and things like that.
So you think the sites are worthwhile?
Oh, very much so. I think for restaurants, especially restaurants that are doing their job, I think that with the three experience. With atmosphere, food, and service, you got it. And they actually are very, very helpful. I think in the restaurant and the hospitality business, that the reviews are useful. But you're right. I think that in a lot of businesses, like supermarkets or with the medical profession, sometimes you only go there when, like in the big retail stores, like, the Rite Aids and things like that, they tend to only do a review when something went wrong, like you said.
Right. I kind of find that is with the reviews, it's either excessive praise or excessive complaining.
Because most of us are just saying, thank you.
Yes, thanks. Everything is perfect.
And that's my point. I have not done a restaurant review. Maybe I'll start. It was good. That'll be it.
So I don't know. I just found, and I'm sure that the listening audience can attest to this, that there's just an ability to wait in certain circumstances where waiting in another circumstance makes you incredibly upset. So maybe just keep that in mind.
Right. And I, stories from the emergency rooms, how the waits can be there. And I sometimes when I deal with medical students, I'll say, this is the healthcare system under strain. This is it. For the gazillion dollars it's costing us, it's still not really giving us what we need. And I shouldn't say it like that, because sometimes I do what I call the Mick Jagger medicine. I say it gives you what you need, but not necessarily what you want. In other words, you will get your care in the emergency room. You're just going to have to wait for it. But it's a system under strain. Not enough primary care. And even though there might be primary care, people still not understanding it and using it appropriately. Urgent care is available. People still not using that appropriately. Maybe going to the emergency room. So a lot of different ingredients come into it.
Patients also should be aware at this time, there's like a gridlock going on in your doctor's office. People are vaccinated now. They're coming back to see their doctor when they haven't seen their doctor.
Right.
in
catch up.
over the course of the pandemic. So when you call and you can't get an appointment for 2 to 3 weeks, you must understand that you are amongst many people who are coming back to see the doctor right now. It is like a traffic jam, like a heavy populated highway.
It's kind of like, people who, supposedly like there's a shortage of new cars, because demand was off for a year, therefore supply was off.
Production was down.
Everything. So it's kind of the same idea. Things are opening back up, and there's a little bit of a log jam at the site. But it comes back to something that you and I have talked about from the first time we did the show, which is to understand that the doctor's office, your healthcare provider, we're on your side. We're on the same side of this complicated healthcare system. It should not and it is not an adversarial relationship.
Right.
So I really encourage people to not look at it that way. There's a lot of efforts, kind of either intentional or unintentional, to kind of make it that way. We talked a story about a lot, like when a medication gets turned down by an insurance company, they will literally say to the patient, we cannot approve that medicine. We will not approve the medicine because your doctor did not give us the correct information. So clearly the patient walks away from that saying the doctor did something wrong.
The office doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah. And as you always point out, why would I prescribe it if I didn't want you to get it? So it even defies logic, but that's part of a good example where you just take a deep breath and say, sometimes I like patients to help me out. Hey, if I prescribed, Brio for your breathing and your insurance company's not covering it, maybe call your insurance company and find out what they are going to cover, and I'll prescribe that because these meds are a little interchangeable. Whether diabetes meds or if I order a test, particularly with Medicare where you have to get the code correct, sometimes the code, it doesn't get submitted, it gets dropped. Maybe I think it's the correct code. Things change. So I always say just take a deep breath, get the bill over here, I'll review my notes, and we will find out, exactly what needs to be done. And it's usually a very, it's usually just a technicality that will fix that problem. So take a deep breath. Bills are scary. I don't blame people for getting these bills in the mail. That's also something. It happened to my son recently. My son that just turned 26 got off my insurance, has his own dental insurance now, and he went to a dentist, and he says he gave all of the information, but they submitted it to the old dental insurance, which then turned it down. And it came to my address because that's, and I called him and I said, just politely call the dental office, remind them that you have new insurance, and get it submitted. Don't ignore the bill because that's not good either. But just, that's also one thing when something goes wrong with the bill. Make sure that whoever submitted the bill has the correct insurance because that happens sometimes too. So it's a system that can break down on many different levels. That's the way, one way I talk about it.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, we were going to talk about some other topics. We'll revisit next week, and I got some great guests lined up. Can you believe that?
We'd like to thank so much Dr. Mark Tack.
Yes,
thank you so much for calling this morning. Very important topic. Everything that's going on with COVID.
If you're not vaccinated, please do it. And if you have people that your family members, your friends, whatever, talk to them about it. Try to have a discussion. This is so important to get us out of this. I'm very, very nervous that we're going to have to take steps backwards.
You probably had the MMR. Get the vaccination.
Yeah.
We're going, time's going so quickly, right? We're already here in July, and
halfway through July.
Soon it'll be the fall, and then the winter, and we'll be inside.
And we'll have inside, and we'll have Thanksgiving and Christmas, and you remember they predicted that surge.
They did,
and it happened in January, February, and it was horrible. All right, so that's the message for today.
Exactly. Be proactive. Get the vaccination so that when we go into the cold season and all the holidays, we are protected. So you can do what you want to do.
Protect each other.
I want to just talk about getting the flu shot again. Remember
I know. Remember when plastic bags were the big issue?
Yeah, and straws.
No straws. And I remember when those were our big problems. Remember?
Right.
I know.
All right. So we are done with this morning's show. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Maxwell family. Thank you, Dr. Tack. And we'll see you back next week.
Thank you, Dr. Eric Stamberg, and thank you, Robin Baker, and a very, very special thanks to Dr. Mark Tack for his 7 o'clock 40 minutes that he gave us, and thank you so much for that. Thank you for sharing the morning with us, everybody, and participating in Kingston Community Radio, KCR, AM 920 and 92.5 FM, WGHQ. This is Monday, July 12th. And this last portion of Kingston Community Radio was brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. Many locations throughout the Mid-Hudson Valley, one near you. Talk radio at its best, inspired discussions of, by, and for the communities. We invite you to keep up with us every weekday, 7 to 9 a.m. And until tomorrow morning at 7 a.m., for a terrific Tuesday, we wish you every success in growing and developing Kingston and all our neighboring communities. We now return you to Magic 92.5.